Welcome, all you +2 comedy modifiers, back to the stream. Welcome back to Solving the Witness, a laid-back, annotated Let's Play where we try to uncover the deeper underlying secrets of Jonathan Blow's The Witness. This is going to be part 2 of the second mailbag episode. Last time I did the mailbag episode, I went over to the console lounge and I did it in the game The Witness and left the game paused so my eyes could be closed, as that's what the pause screen is in that game. And I didn't like how it looked. I was using the iPad to read questions, so I kept looking down. And this is not... I'm denying you guys so much of the goodness of my face right here. So I'm going to put them on screen above me, so I have to look above the camera, and then you get to see all of this gorgeousness as I read. So chat is up, but... I'm not looking directly at it, so if I miss your comments during this, I apologize. But let's talk about The Witness and some of the comments you've left in the past. This comes from the Treehouse episode of Solving the Witness. Matthias immediately says something about the idea of the pause screen. The pause screen of The Witness is literally your character closing his eyes. So he brings up, I always thought the graphical effect you see when closing your eyes is a mimicry of what you see when you actually close our eyes in reality. I wasn't aware that when you close your eyes, you will show you the puzzles that are not even present in the game. Please investigate this. If this were true, it would be truly a new discovery, or at least one I haven't read about. So we did try this a bit. We left the game paused for a long period of time, and it's kind of that situation of like, if you guys are old enough or a certain gamer vintage to remember when everyone was playing Guitar Hero and then you'd close your eyes and you could still see like the notes going by. It's just, you know, the way that our brains kind of take like a negative image of what we're looking at. When we close our eyes, we can kind of see it. It is in fact mimicking that whenever you pause the game in The Witness. We did the experiment where last week or at this point 2 weeks ago, where we kept our eyes closed and we saw if anything like of note came up, and I didn't see anything like super important. So it's something that was worth investigating, but I don't think anything big ever came of it. We are currently starting from, I think this is, which video is this? This is the Treehouse video. I think is like 13. No, Treehouse is 19. 19. This was the episode that was actually missing from the playlist for a while. So thank you for finding this video, Cable B, who says I found it. It's missing from the playlist. Thank you for finding it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Draken84 says, I'm very interested in the idea of wood versus stone and the connection between them. I basically had this idea that wood meant natural and stone meant man-made, because all the statues are stone. It's something that requires a little bit more investigation. And I said that there was nothing made out of wood, but the tree houses are all made of wood. Whatever. I'm honestly not sure if the treehouse symbol is supposed to be a sun. I always believed it was a sun. I think it looks like a sun more than anything. Because I also kind of like the ideas that the symbol of the sun means it's supposed to be connected in pairs, and that always made me think of like constellations, but it could easily not be the sun. I mean, it looks like it, and I often refer to it that way, but it would make no sense to use the sun as a symbol for combining exactly two of the same things, since there's only one sun, right? Well, I mean, suns are just stars, and I don't feel comfortable calling it a star. That symbol is star. But, I mean, there are multiple suns. It's just that there's only one sun to Earth. And on top of that, the sun in The Witness doesn't work right. So, I don't know. He continues to say, I've spent so much time thinking about this area, and I recently decided that this area, this is the treehouse area, could actually symbolize the concept of love. We see exactly two coming together. Okay, two coming together. That's what the symbol means. Note that also we end up with two paths joining up, which nicely fits the theme. And there are actually multiple quotes in this area that touch upon the theme of love, I think. Although I should redo the area to make sure. You and Kermit even joke about the idea of monogamous sons, so I'm not completely alone there. That was a joke that I made in that video. Shout outs to Kermit. Interesting. There's also a theme of separation from others. The tree houses are cut off from the rest of the island around them. That's a really good point. You can only access this area via the boat originally. So the idea of separation is definitely, and like sectored off, is definitely alive in this area. The area is littered with spikes and unfriendly looking vegetation. I think this area might actually refer to a story point where two characters got together and pushed others around them away somehow. Or maybe this is a signal that it is related to memories that are painful. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really been able to look at other areas with the same eyes. So unless other areas also give part of the same story, I'm not sure if there is something that actually in the game or if I'm making it up. This is an interesting idea that this actual area is representing a bad relationship of some sort, since we are kind of marrying off the sons, and that does separate them from like the community of sons. Like, kind of, it's a stretch, but it's an interesting idea. But I think Draken also hits the nail on the head here, that you can apply this logic to this area. None of the other areas kind of fit that kind of narrative structure of the way the rules work mirror some sort of like life event. Because the other areas are like the quarry, which is cancel a rule, which, I mean, I guess that could be death. Then there's the shady trees, which I always say is yin and yang, like the low light and the dark. The keep could be like society and the paths we walk. I don't know what that says about the marsh and Tetris, though. Trying to fit in, maybe? Something fitting in. Stretch. Stretch. I also don't know what that would do with the sun and the desert area. The glare area. It's an interesting idea, but I don't know. We definitely talk more about the eyes closing thing after you got the second ending. Okay. I haven't gotten the second ending yet. I have a lot of thoughts, but I won't spoil things. Thank you for not spoiling things. Patrick says, under the stairs is always a good place to hide meat in Castlevania, because I'm always obsessed in looking under the steps, because it's a video game. Pedro Polo says, I agree that the branching paths have nothing to do with free will. Yeah, basically, I kind of say that there are multiple paths in the treehouse, but they all lead the same place. So it's a metaphor for fate versus free will. Again, stretch. The left path shows the relationship that the sons can have with other symbols, and that it's divided into two bridges, the pink bridge and the orange bridge. Pink bridge is a mix of suns and dots, which is a soft relationship. The orange path is a mix of color squares and the suns, which is a complex relationship, since they change the rules of the suns. Interesting. So the different like types of relationships we go through as we grow up. There's something about the treehouse that just lends itself to metaphor better than any other level in this game. Level's a weird word. Area. The green bridge actually relates more to the idea of the left side, but it is optional bridge of this area. So I think that it takes part of the bigger metaphor that I'm trying to create, but also the only bridge that goes backwards. So perhaps it represents that taking a step backwards to analyze something could lead to interesting results, which is one of the key aspects of the witness, is the idea you have to remove yourself from your preconceived notions in order to understand things. So that's nice. And the middle path is has only a timer that opens a door to the laser. That is your objective. So I think it represents the part of the knowledge that you are trying to figure out, the theorem that you're trying to prove, the technology you are trying to build or cure or trying to discover. Oh, this is kind of... So now we're kind of tying it from relationships to just kind of like your own journey. That's kind of nice. So the metaphor means that sometimes to progress in knowledge, you need to combine ideas from different areas together to form a new way. I love that. I love that a lot. This also applies to the branching solution. Sometimes you already a problem in an area of knowledge, but solve it in a different way to accomplish the same thing in terms of others. Okay, that's cool. I also freak out about a moving cloud in this episode. Everyone's kind of being coy about the moving cloud. It's very nice thank you for the coyness, as always. Next episode is the struggle bus episode, where I struggle through without any philosophy because this area is hard. Just seeing if anyone has anything to say. I just want to point out the symbol on the hard panel towards the end looks suspiciously like pants. This is true. Thank you, Cable B, for that. I struggle with that puzzle for a long time, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Knowing in advance that you're going to struggle in this episode makes the comment about going with the flow kind of funny. Nothing important to comment. I already made a long comment in the first Treehouse episode. Thank you, Paulo. Or Pedro. Yeah, nothing big in this episode. Everyone just watched me suffer. There wasn't anything to be philosophized about. So now we're on to fire. Cable B says, it's interesting you say it feels wrong and that there's probably another solution. That's exactly the point of the next panel. Don't remember the exact context of this, but okay. Some of the puzzles you said have two solutions on top of each other have more than two solutions. Yeah, I said a bunch of wrong stuff in this episode. If I remember correctly, I'm still obsessed with the idea that some of the puzzles have a more correct way to solve them. I just think that would be a great way to hide something. If there were a few puzzles that kind of have a coin flip of sorts, think of it that way, that like there's a right way and a wrong way. And the idea, if there's, I don't know, 30 of them that have a wronger way and a righter way to solve it, the idea of getting all 30 correct, like, would be insane luck. That would be someone that would not only have to solve everything, but solve them all correctly and basically win 30 coin flips. Draken yelling at me. I don't think your rationalization for arriving at the word fruit is at all relevant. Oh, this is me trying to see things that aren't there. That's just the best way to explain it, is I saw some panels and I was like, oh, this says fruit, and it doesn't. The apple-shaped leaves are in a lot of places on the island. This is very true. Thank you for doing some research on the aspect of them. I have some similar questions, but I couldn't get the concrete enough to answer them myself. Reinforcing the fakeness of the island. Yes, that makes sense. The thing about the shape trumping color is actually very important to realize. This is the fact that shape is more important. Like, in order of operations, you can have things of the same color grouped together if they're stars or if they're suns. Like, there's an order of priority of the rules of the witness. Each shape has specific rules attached to it, and the rules treat color completely differently. The stars/suns want another symbol of the exact same color, and the squares care about the squares of the specific color. That means that symbols are leading in the color, are leaning in what the color means. Okay, I think I get what you're saying there. But again, it's just the order that you operate. It's PEMDAS in a way. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Like, you get different answers if you do multiplication first versus addition. That's why we have to have those rules. As for the fire tree, I have a few thoughts about this. This is the optical illusion where standing in the right way, it looks like a man setting a fire. I kind of proposed the idea that the fire is in some way real because it looks like there was in fact a fire there at some point that did damage. One of the thoughts is that I have always thought that the stone statues and the wooden illusions might have been made by different people in lore, and that their meanings might be different. Because, I have always believed that, like, a lot of the optical illusions occur naturally. Like, all the stone people have been carved by man, and then the Tree of Many Faces, and this one with the fire, and even, like, the tree with no leaves, but the cloud, are kind of made by God. Like, they occur naturally. But I also did have the theory that, like, they kind of the idea of, how a house feels haunted because something horrible happened there, that, like, the effects of what man is doing is kind of affecting the way nature grows. It's a lot of theories going on here. I've had a feeling that the stone statues might reflect on the more abstract concept, and the wooden ones might reflect on an event that might have actually happened. Yeah. As for the question of the treehouse actually burned down, it's difficult to say. I have more inclined to think that it has to do with the story and the theme of love that is in this area. I feel like the illusion might symbolize the idea that the main character blames themselves for ending the relationship, that they sabotage things in some way. Maybe. I don't know. It's one interpretation. Yeah, I don't know either. Like, really figuring out why these optical illusions exist in this world, and, like, if they have any meaning, is kind of like the big thing that needs to be discovered when it comes to analyzing this game. So that's it for that one. I think I'll do one more, and then I think I'm going to be done for the day here. So moving on to, this is a big one. Moving on to what? This is the one where I make the discovery about the... This is probably my favorite episode of Solving the Witness. This one, or unless it's an E. What I know is the one that I find the audio clip that says "what" at the end very suspiciously, which I haven't gotten them up here yet, but I've found more audio clips with similar feels to them. This might also be the Willow Tree episode, which love the Willow Tree episode. Let's see if this is the Willow Tree episode. We got 14 comments, lots of comments here. I think the timing of the streams is so beautiful, says Pedro. You just recently discovered about what this "what" means. Just to go back and post on YouTube the first teaser of this part. Oh, okay. So he's comparing the fact that when this went live, I had just gotten inside the mountain. Or gotten deep inside the mountain, if that makes sense. Which I think is a kind of a beautiful thing. That this goes live on YouTube while that's happening on Twitch is kind of fun. I like your observation of spreading fires. Great observation. And then I said something that looked like a butt. Because I'm also a comedian when I do this. Excuse me. Pedro says, it seems obvious now that you said that, but I've never thought of this symbolism between the treehouse and excluding yourself from the world, even knowing that you can only access it by boat. That's another big thing about this area that's very suspicious. I thought this was the only way the developers for rewarding / encouraging the use of the boat, and that you can only lower the bridge by pulling all the stars together. That's good. Matthias votes has a bunch of things to say, apparently. I think desire is kind of okay. That's referring to the fact that I talk about Buddhism, and Buddhism's about freeing yourself from desire. When you are free of desire, then you will reach nirvana, because desire leads to nothing but suffering. But Matthias argues with the Buddha and says desire is just one of the many feelings that come up. It is the emotional attachment and the identification that leads to suffering. I'm not sure if this is Buddhist canon, but at least it is my personal experience and interpretation. To me, the bottom line of the reality of suffering is the inability to accept reality as it is, the strong urge to get away from, however, reality currently presents itself. Interesting. The resistance caused some of the inner friction that is suffering. I mean, if you define desire as want, if you want for nothing, you should be happy. So there you go. That is my understanding of Buddhist, like, super narrowed down. Of course, when you boil this all down to a simple lesson that can be said in one sentence, you arrive at let go of all desire, which is a bit inaccurate, but it achieves the goal. I mean, I think that's still, it makes the most sense to me. Like, if someone who wants for nothing suffers none. Like, if you need anything, no, I'm content, I am happy, I am at peace. And granted, someone could come up to me and then punch me, and then I'd be like, I am suffering. I desire you to stop punching me. But if I was a true Buddhist, I'd be like, I'm cool with this. You can hit me all you want. It bothers me none. I have no desire for this to end. Matthias also adds, Ganjia, which I'm sure I'm saying wrong, is one of those contemporary non-dualistic teachers who teach a washed-down version of... I'm not even going to try to say that. I believe that I got upset with this guy. If I remember my video correctly, I was just like, oh, is he selling is he trying to sell Buddhism? Because that's weird. That is not to talk down on them. I found her, greatly inspiring for myself. I just had to step around a few of her supernatural bits. Yes, she's a student of Papagia. I do remember this. Draken adds to this, I was really surprised when I found that Ganjia, which I'm probably saying wrong, is the second non-dualism teacher in the game. In the game! I'm not sure if she would... I wonder if Draken actually means specifically the witness, or if you're talking about the game in general, like life. I'm not sure if she would describe herself that way, though. I've seen a video of her where someone asks her opinion on the teachings of non-dualism, and she says that teaching non-dualism isn't something that you can do in a non-dualistic way. The teaching of non-dualism is always going to be dualistic because you're talking about how it's different from dualism. That makes sense. Her methods are very different. I think she tries to use the same teachings as her teacher, although I have not researched it much. As far as the game is concerned, it seems to focus more on her methods than her goals. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Pager says, the interpretations of not being able to put into words makes a lot of sense with Blow's perspective. As I think I said before, but he says that the themes of the game can't be explained in words. If he could just say it, not make a game about it. Yes, that's something I've said a couple times, that I feel like it would be rude to ask Jonathan Blow to explain The Witness, because basically saying, like, what does The Witness mean? His response should be, well, play it, that's why it's there. This is something that can't be expressed in a conversation, in a book, in a movie. This can only be, the ideas and feelings that are meant to be expressed can only be expressed in a game. That's why it's a game. Excuse me. Let's see it. Pager goes on to say, also that ties with one of the big themes of the game, but you kind of obvious since the person being quoted in the person is the person in the 6th video. Also, I agree with the connections that you make about the quote, about this quote, with the game being silent and the necessity of deeper understanding of the puzzles rules out some of the using words. Yeah. Basically, and this is something that I'll get into deeper when I get to the challenge, is the point of the challenge is the game demanding that you truly know the rules. Not that you understand the rules, but that you know them on a deeper level. It's not so much of, I see this symbol, so I know I must do this, this, and this. It's, I see the symbol, and it's done. Like, it needs to be part of your soul to pass the challenge, not just something you know. Like, it's kind of the difference of, this is a weird comparison, but the difference between when you first start playing Keep Talking and No One Explodes from when you've played it a lot. When you play in the beginning of Don't Keep Talking, Nobody Explodes, you need that other person there to kind of explain what is happening. But if you've played it enough, you kind of already know everything that needs to get done. So you see a green button and you're just like, click, done. All right, moving on. I know what these symbols are. Let me just hit them instead of asking, because they're in your soul. They're not a thing you need an instruction manual for. If that makes sense. There are no animals on the island except for illusions. That's something that I bring up, is that there's no actual animals on the island. But Columbus brings up there are recordings of birds, which is very true. Though I think the fact that there are no animals on the island is supposed to be a clue, that the bird noises are not ambience, but rather part of the puzzle. That makes sense. That being said, I do miss, there are butterflies. I'm pretty sure there are butterflies. There are sticks that look like stick bugs that could be stick bugs. But I believe there actually are butterflies if you search. And there's the dog statue. Also interesting that I say, according to Columbus here, the witness is done wordlessly. No one ever speaks to you. When discussing an audio log, which is specifically the witness speaking to you. Through quotes, not through the words of the witness. Yes, that is true. If you want a puzzle game that's all about wordlessness, introductions to rules, and takes heavy inspiration from the witness, I recommend Understand. I've never heard of Understand. I might have to look into Understand. Right now I'm busy cooking sausage, but maybe that's something else. And apparently I missed an illusion. Oh well. And finally, Cable B says, I'm really struggling to see why you think at 1341 that the solution should have worked. That was just me being stupid. When you sent this comment, I looked back at it. I was like, I thought I did something that I didn't do. I didn't change my shirt. What are you talking about? So now we're moving on to E, which was a very silly level, or silly Let's Play, because I thought I saw the letter E hidden in some trees, so I just called the whole thing E. Comments. Let's get into the mailbag here. Chak says, I like this playthrough a lot, but you keep shortening your videos and we deserve more. Yes and no. Basically, I used to do one stream was a video, and I would stream for an hour. So with like inserts and stuff like that, videos became like over an hour, like by a lot. Now I do half a stream as a video, and I don't feel like I need to rush my cut-ins, because when I cut in, like, I'm adding so much time. So like it's always bothersome to me when like the video's already starting in an hour and then I add stuff and then it's like an hour 45 minutes. I was like, God, I talk too much. Let me just cut out some of this stuff. By saying like it's a half hour and I extend it to an hour, it's like, okay, I only talk for about half an hour, so I feel less pompous. So that's why they've gotten shorter. Because there's also the issue of like sometimes I take 30 minutes and then I'm like, all right, let's really break this stuff down. I'm like, there's not really a lot to say about this chunk of Let's Play. So that's why it fluctuates. Draken is back and says, I think there's definitely more of connections between the environmental puzzles and the rest of the island, that there might be some sort of story to that. My personal best theory is that the island was created for reflecting on things, and that the creators saw the environmental puzzles. They might have created the other puzzles in order to find a deeper understanding of the environmental puzzles, maybe? That's kind of an interesting idea. The idea that there were already the environmental puzzles on the island before the panels existed. And like that's kind of their way of harnessing the power of the environmental puzzles. Maybe. I can kind of get into that. It definitely looks like they were, like the puzzles were the last thing added to the island. Okay. Yeah, I guess they are the newest thing on the island. Like, it definitely seems like the stone building of the keep has been kind of like worn away. So I could totally believe that that building has been there long before the panel showed up. That's an interesting thing to bring up. But I guess by that logic, the newest area would have to be the treehouse. Because the treehouse is unacceptable or inaccessible without the panel bridges. So that would make that the newest area, which is an interesting thing to think about. Or maybe the newest area is inside the mountain, because it would be weird for that area to exist without panels. But interesting thought. Very interesting thought. But then some of them are built into the wall. Like some of them are built into like the doors and stuff, and like there's some like really baked into the shrine, which seems a bit older. So that's an interesting thought. A couple people have thoughts about this. Pedro says this is interesting. In the real development of the game, the idea of environmental puzzles came before the panels. Actually, Jonathan Blow said that the idea of the game came from finding the hidden environmental puzzles, but they also suppose that the environmental version of something that you would normally do in the game. So he thought about the panels, or the panel puzzles to do their role, but the panels were put on the island first. The actual creation of the environmental puzzles were much later in development. That's true. Interesting. Matthias says, so strange how you want to mirror the exact solution and you don't think about simply mirroring the path. Brain fart. I have a bunch of problems in this area. The treehouse is hard, damn it. Pedro is back and says, E. Pedro also says, I don't know why people of the island being aware of the environmental puzzles is strange to you. We are aware of various obvious examples that in the game, the famous panel... Yeah, I kind of was floating out this idea that since the environmental puzzles are hidden, that the people in the island are unaware of them. I think it just kind of goes along with the fact that there are people who play this game and never find them. So, I don't know. I think there has to be people who don't know about them because the whole point of them is to be discovered. Not known, but discovered. I don't know if that makes sense. But I'm sticking with that sentence. I've said it and I've recorded it and it's in the video. So I'm sticking with it. We are now moving on to comedy and poetry. This is another one of my favorites. This is the one where I believe we make the big willow tree discovery, which is one of my absolute favorite things I've discovered. Matthias immediately says, great analysis of the poem. Yeah, so basically, in short, in the treehouse, if you haven't watched this episode, it's one of the best. Go watch comedy and poetry. But the analysis of the treehouse, I was wondering what the type of tree was that is holding up these tree houses. And I believe it is a pruned willow tree. That's why it's just like a lot of sticks that kind of like stick out. I say they kind of look like hearts, but I think it's just a pruned willow tree. We then find an audio log later that is abridged. There's a line missing, and the line missing is about a willow tree. So I felt like I stumbled upon something there. Let's see, what else do we have here? The puzzle that you made out, this is from Cable B. The puzzle that you made out in 3359, I don't know what I'm talking about here. Oh, I find the interesting thing about here is there are 16 slots. So 16 slots would make a perfect 4x4 grid, which is what we're used to seeing here in The Witness. So I kind of had the idea that perhaps I should make this into a grid and make the full containers black squares and the empty containers white squares. That makes an unsolvable puzzle if you do that. So I don't think that's correct either. Cable B says that the puzzle that I brought up at 3359, this is a puzzle that I created and stated that it was unsolvable. Cable B believes that it is, but it is not. There is a checkerboard on this panel, which is impossible to solve a black and white panel that looks like this. I forget why I create this puzzle. I believe it has something to do with the bridge and the nodes on it. But yeah, that puzzle that I created is 100% unsolvable. Sorry, Cable B, it's true. Draken again talking about the willow tree. The willow tree is interesting. I thought a lot about what kind of tree that would be, and somehow I never figured it was a knotted willow. Yeah, I say it's a knotted willow as well as a pruned willow. The willow tree is widely known to be able to survive in harsh conditions. I always thought that wasn't true. I thought there was a poem about how the willow tree requires like a lot of love in order to survive. But maybe I'm wrong. Just like the lotus flower, by the way, which really the lotus flower can live in harsh conditions? I'm finding all of this hard to believe. It is a reaffirmation of how hostile the treehouse environment is. Okay, I kind of like that point. I talked about earlier about how the trees close to the area and how the branches have mysteriously ended up with the ship. I think that it's also the willow trees possibly. And in that case, the fact that the branches have been removed would make more sense. When researching a bit, I came across the idea that a knotted willow tree is a symbol for love. That doesn't work out, which is interesting because we talked about earlier that the idea of the treehouse being a metaphor for a relationship where you're separating yourself off and pairing yourself off and pushing other things away. So that's a very good point. I really like that idea. Draken goes on to talk about, and I love this about Draken's posts, Draken is clearly just writing as watching. So like there's stuff that he brings up that I know I bring up later. So it's a silly situation. But Draken goes on to say, the Wordsworth poem is part of theme number 4 of The Witness, which is fatalism. The idea that it can be scary to seek out the truth, and it's possible to be scared of it, which is why he's afraid of the mountain, because the mountain represents knowledge here. That makes sense. The quote also really hammers home how important it is to find out more about the quotes outside of the game. The truth is usually hidden outside of the game. Well, I then blow his mind and say, wait, a willow tree? Wow, I read the complete version of the quote a lot of times and completely missed that. It seems as if the willow trees might have a bigger role to play in this game than I thought. I'm glad I can blow your mind. It makes me feel good because I was real proud of this episode that people were blown away by this. Draken also talks about the star. There is a single star in the sky besides the sun. The single star is definitely a point of the canon or canonical ending when we hear a star at dawn. Oh, that's a good point. During the Willy Wonka ending, that is said. Draken had a lot to say. I had a lot to say. So, Draken says, good point about the statues, that we can angle ourselves in a way that the queen is looking at the guitar player. Oh yeah, this is me talking about the keep again. That I say that the idea of the keep, where the queen and the king and the guitar player are, they all tell a different story depending on whose perspective you're looking through. I've always loved that area. This also brings up the Becca thing, which is on the side of a bridge. There is missing and present like canisters, and if you break it into binary and then hexadecimal or something, it spells Becca. I think this is an entire coincidence, as does Draken here. I think the Becca thing is such a rabbit hole. One thing that most people seem to miss at the start of the puzzle is also actually a 1, which makes it 17 digits. Yeah, I think there's something to the side of that bridge, but I don't think we've ever solved it. I don't think it's Becca. I think that's very sad. Oh, this is also, and I love this, this is the episode where I ask everybody to answer this question. What is funnier, underwear or underpants? And consecutively, it looks like, or consecutively, I don't think that's the word I wanted there. It's consistently, people say underpants, which is my point, is underpants is funnier because there's more stop plosives to it. And everyone claims they think it's funnier because underpants is not used as often as underwear, but it's the stop plosives. Anything else that we want to talk about? I don't think Blow wants us to think it's impossible to fully understand the game. I agree with that. But I think that he made it in a way that you can't fully understand the bigger mystery just by solving the tiny mysteries. There's a bigger truth to everything. Okay. Another vote for underpants. Another vote for underpants. Pedro says, I do think the path mirrors the poem. All right, good. That's the other thing that I brought up. This episode's a lot of people agreeing with me. So I just want to bring up, yeah, this person agrees with me. Yeah, this person also agrees with me. Underpants, says Cable B. Matthias says, hey, I just reread something I wrote on Reddit. It wasn't about the witness in a direct way. It is more of the notion of the self-subjective experience. But it led me through a thought about the witness. It doesn't have anything to do with this video in particular, so I hope you don't mind if it just dropped here. Drop it here. Go ahead, Matthias. Lay it on me. Here's my idea. The character that the player is playing doesn't really exist. All right, what's your explanation here, Matthias? The character is the eponymous witness, analogous to what is called witness consciousness. And just like its analog, it's a mirage, an illusion of sorts. It is not as subtle as we suspect it to be, and it's definitely not at the center. There's more like everything around it creates its consciousness. My interpretation is that everything we experience, that the content of the consciousness create the illusion of the center that we intuitively identify with our subjective selves. Not sure if I'm following this, but you took the time to write it, so I will try to read it. In the game, the player character similarly is an emergent effect of its environment. So the whole idea that someone else is in the island is misleading because there isn't one single person on the island. Humpty Dumpty can never be put together because Humpty Dumpty never really existed in the first place. The island and the player character are both things that just happen, just like that. I know it's a stretch, and I don't go as far as to claim that that is the intended interpretation, but my personal aesthetic pet theory, and I like it. I'm not sure if I 100% follow the idea that we are not the character, we are witnessing the character, but the character doesn't really exist. I'm lost. I'm lost in that. All right, Matthias continues and says, some things in the game that can be bent or interpreted to seemingly support my hypothesis. For example, we often discuss how illusions of the island's history become apparent when you look at the details. Even things that appear as if they had been first created whole and then damaged later on were probably only faked to look this way from the beginning. All right. We often ask ourselves what this means. In my interpretation, it's almost obvious. Those are pointers. You're supposed to conclude that everything on the island was created and fake. It's only an illusion, including yourself. Okay. I mean, I can kind of get behind that the island isn't real. Also, when we go into the mountain and deeper into the cave, the illusion is dropped even more. We see the raw drawings, the planning stages, which is very true. We see design sketches of the Zen temple and other in-game landmarks. Even in those, concept drawings were apparently withered and damaged. That is true. I'm not going to get too deep points here. I will definitely be revisiting this theory. However, in the same reason, there's also an audio log that stands out, the one where it discusses the relationship between those who set up the experiment. Again, I'm going to hold off on this, but I like what you're going. In the elevator ending, everything is deconstructed. The elevator dissolves, but do you really exist? Okay. All right. I'm going to store all this. I'm going to store this for future episodes. This is all really good. Pedro Paulo says underwear. The only person to say underwear is funnier. The liar. But then goes on to say that the stop plosive things make sense because K is the funniest letter, and in Brazil, they represent laughter by a series of Ks. So instead of ha ha ha, it's k k k k k k k. Which, K is the funniest letter because it's a hard stop plosive. T's are funny as well. And that, unfortunately, is going to do an end for this mailbag. I know I didn't finish nearly as much as I wanted to, but I'm running out of time, and that's all I had time for. So let me know in the comments if you want more mailbag or if you want a new episode of Solving the Witness next week. I will do whatever you guys say. I am your humble servant. I need to take a break and chill out. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Solving the Witness. Be sure to subscribe to +2 Comedy Gaming and follow me on Twitter. And yeah, follow me on Twitter at +2 Comedy, but also follow me on Twitch +2 Comedy. And there you can see the live streams, and you can join me live next time we try to solve the witness.